are these people touching my data? Shut it down. Shut all of it down. Now. Those were Jonathan Hale's exact words when he stormed into the conference room that used to be mine. I was not there to see it, but the people who were standing behind him silent, pale, terrified, told me later. I could picture the way his voice would slice through the room because I had worked with him for nearly a decade. He did not raise his voice unless something had gone very, very wrong. Hearing that sentence changed everything. But the part that still stings is how all of it began. 2 weeks earlier, I was sitting across from Clive Morton in his newly remodeled glass office, listening to him explain the updated compensation structure. He said it like he was offering me a gift. I sat very still, trying to keep my hands from shaking. 1% commission, he repeated, folding his hands. More than fair for your role, Aretha. I stared at him, trying to understand how he could say something like that without flinching. I manage 10 accounts worth over $2 million annually, I said, including Jonathan's. You know that. Clive smiled. It was thin, practiced, made for presentations. The company is shifting. Efficiency comes first. Accepting this shows alignment. That is not alignment, I told him. That is disrespect. He leaned back, eyes narrowing. Aretha, I need you to be reasonable. If you refuse, you make it harder for the entire team to adapt. There was a warning buried in the sentence, and I heard it clearly. But I also heard my own voice steady this time, cutting through the moment. I will not accept 1%. Clive. He tapped a pen twice, almost theatrically. Then you are telling me your whole team refuses. That is what you want me to take upstairs. Those words followed me out of the room. I did not know yet that he meant them literally. I did not know that my team, the people I trained, defended, and built something with for years would pay for the sentence I said out loud. I only knew that the moment I walked away, something behind me had already shifted. How do you stay silent when the price of your dignity is suddenly measured in 1%? Clive called me back into his office the next morning. No email, no explanation, just his voice over the intercom, clipped and controlled. Aretha, step in for a moment. I closed the spreadsheet I had been reviewing and walked in. The door clicked shut behind me. He didn't offer a seat. I want to revisit our conversation, he began, straightening the stack of papers on his desk. Have you reconsidered the 1% structure? No, I said. My answer hasn't changed. His jaw tightened. Just a twitch. But I saw it. You understand what this implies for your department. I understand what it implies for me. I replied, and I gave you my decision. Clive leaned forward, lowering his voice. This company is not a democracy. The board expects a 30% reduction in operating costs this quarter. They hired me because I know how to deliver those numbers. So my pay is the sacrifice. Your cooperation, he corrected. You and your team cost more than any other unit on this floor. I need alignment. Aretha, you need submission. I shot back. For a moment, the room was silent except for the faint hum of the air system. His expression shifted, something colder settling behind his eyes. Then you are telling me your entire team refuses, he said. No rise in tone, no visible anger, just the quiet snap of a trap closing. I did not say that, but it is what I will report, he answered. Your stance sets the tone. Your resistance becomes theirs. That is how leadership works. My breath caught somewhere between fury and disbelief. Clive, you cannot punish them because of me. He shrugged lightly, as if we were discussing weather patterns. Your team will adapt, or they will be replaced by individuals who understand cost discipline. That sentence hung in the air long enough to sting. I walked out with my shoulders stiff, heart pounding hard enough to feel in my teeth. The hallway felt colder than usual, like the building itself understood what he had just threatened. From the corner of my eye, I saw 2 analysts whispering near the break room, glancing at me with uneasy curiosity. One of them murmured, "He has been talking about cuts since he came from Austin." The other replied, He wants his 30%. Someone's going to bleed for it. Their words trailed behind me as I headed back to my desk, each step heavier than the last. What kind of leader punishes an entire team just to silence one voice? I swiped my badge at the elevator that morning, and the light flashed red. I tried again. Another red blink. Before I could process it, the lobby guard pressed a button on his console. "Your access was changed overnight," he said quietly. "Management note says to escort you up." My stomach tightened. I followed him, every step feeling heavier than the one before. When we reached my floor, the first thing I heard was murmuring low, unsettled, angry. Then I saw the boxes, row after row of brown cardboard stacked beside the desks that belonged to my team. And at those desks sat strangers, 12 of them, wearing thin plastic badges from a firm I had never heard of. A young man with a New Jersey accent glanced at me. Are you the old lead Clive said we start transition today?" Before I could speak, Clive appeared behind me with that polished smile he wore like a weapon. Perfect timing. "Team, gather around." My team, my people, stepped out into the walkway. Confusion, exhaustion, and betrayal all lived in their eyes. Clive clasped his hands. "As part of our full workforce optimization initiative, we are moving to a more cost-efficient model. The new group will assume all responsibilities immediately." My analyst, Denise, stared at him. "All responsibilities overnight." "Yes," he said. "Your access has already been adjusted. It will help you collect your personal items." Another voice Marcus cut in sharply. "This is because Aretha refused that commission garbage, isn't it?" Clive's smile didn't flicker. "This is a strategic cost decision," someone else whispered loudly. "He planned this weeks ago. He was just waiting for a reason." Clive looked at me then, straight at me. "Aretha, you will assist with the knowledge transfer. Your cooperation ensures a clean transition." My throat tightened. "You are replacing an entire team with 12 people who do not know our systems." "Cost efficiency," he replied. "It is not personal, but every face around me said it was." I picked up one of the boxes meant for my team and swallowed hard. The people standing in front of me deserved more than this. How do you hand over your life's work to strangers who don't even know what they're holding? Clive ordered me to begin training the new group before anyone had even processed what happened. I stood at the front of the conference room with a laptop open, 12 unfamiliar faces staring back at me. Some looked nervous. Some looked bored. None of them looked ready. "Open the client console," I said, keeping my voice steady. "You'll see separate environments for testing, staging, and live operations. You should never touch the live environment without clearance." A man with a lanyard labeled Adrian frowned. "So, do we just click into it?" "Our old shop only had one environment," I blinked. "You had one?" "Yeah." He shrugged. "Small clients. Nothing enterprise level." The words landed like a blow. "You have never handled live enterprise accounts?" I asked quietly. Another contractor, a woman named Rita, lifted her hand. "Our supervisor said we would be learning here. This is our first on-site with high-value accounts. High value, high risk, high stakes." I looked at the dashboard they were fumbling through. On the right side of the screen was the icon for Jonathan Hale's Account 5 platforms. Hundreds of thousands of users. Sensitive financial data I had guarded for years. I shut the laptop. "You need experience before touching these accounts." I said, "Real experience." Clive stepped into the doorway just in time to hear me. "They will learn." "Not fast enough," I shot back. "Jonathan's account requires precision. You know the type of issues we've had." He cut me off with a dismissive wave. "They're cheaper." "Aretha, cheaper wins," Adrian added. "If you can show us how you handled those emergencies, we'll pick it up." Eventually. The word eventually made my stomach twist. When the session ended, I returned to my desk. A box sat beside my chair. My own box this time. A few framed photos. A notebook. My old headset. Packing felt like folding myself smaller and smaller until I could disappear. Denise passed by, eyes red. She whispered, "You deserved better than this." Maybe, but deserving had nothing to do with what was happening now. What happens when the people touching your most sensitive work don't even understand what it means? My apartment in Queen Anne felt smaller than it ever had. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, scrolling through job boards that all sounded the same roles demanding energy I no longer had, salaries far below what I earned, and requirements written for people 10 years younger. I reread one posting 3 times before closing the tab. My chest felt tight. I had spent more than a decade building a reputation in Seattle's tech world, and now I was staring at listings that treated my experience like an inconvenience. My phone buzzed beside the coffee mug. A message from Denise. "Aretha, don't respond to this on the company channels." Another message followed immediately. "VIP asked where you were yesterday. Clive told him you're on sabbatical. He said you'd be back soon." I froze. I typed, "He lied." Denise replied, "Yes. He is using your name to calm the VIP. They think you're still involved." A hollow pressure settled in my chest. Jonathan Hale's team trusted my signature, my voice, my judgment. To know that Clive was using me to hold them steady while pushing unprepared contractors into sensitive systems, it made my hands shake. I wrote back, "Thank you for telling me. Please be careful." She responded with one last line, "If he touches that account without you, something is going to break." I set my phone down. The room felt colder. Should I warn Jonathan? My instincts said yes. My memories of Clive's threats said no. He would not hesitate to claim I violated policy, or non-disclosure, or loyalty provisions. A lawsuit could wipe out everything I had left. The silence in the apartment grew heavier. Outside, the distant sound of a ferry horn drifted from Elliott Bay, but it only made the room feel emptier. My name was being used without my consent. My work was being risked without my control. My reputation was being spent like a discount voucher. When your name is being used without your consent, do you stay quiet or do you reclaim it? I wasn't there when Jonathan Hale pushed through the glass doors of the 12th floor, but the people who were later told me the air changed the moment he stepped in. Jonathan didn't make unannounced visits. If he showed up in person, something was already broken. Clive was mid-presentation with the outsourced group when Jonathan appeared at the doorway. "Where is Aretha?" Jonathan asked. No greeting. No preamble. "Adrian, the contractor." Startled so hard he closed the wrong window on the screen. Rita whispered, "Who is he?" before realizing her mic was still on. Clive stood quickly, arms outstretched as if welcoming an old friend. "Jonathan, what a surprise. Aretha has moved on to another internal initiative. But this team," he gestured proudly toward the contractors, "is more agile. Faster turnaround. Better cost alignment." Jonathan stepped closer, eyes narrowing at the cluster of dashboards flashing red and yellow. "Agile," he repeated. "These people just opened my live environment without verifying the routing rules." Adrian turned red. We were told to familiarize ourselves with live data." Jonathan's tone sliced clean through the room. "You do not learn on my platform." Clive forced a laugh. "Growing pains. Nothing serious." Jonathan ignored him. He leaned across the table, scanning the screens with the sharpness of someone who has built an empire on precision and risk management. "Who authorized this access?" "We were instructed," Rita began, but Jonathan raised a hand. "Stop. Who are these people touching my data?" His voice was low, but every syllable hit like a hammer. Then, louder, clearer, unmistakable. "Shut it down. Shut all of it down. Now." No one moved. Jonathan turned toward the doorway. "Security," he called. "Freeze this account. All access. Immediate." The guard at the end of the hall hesitated only a second before tapping his radio. Clive's expression collapsed as the screens in front of the contractors blinked dark access revoked in real time. Jonathan exhaled once, controlled and furious. "If she is not here," he said, Then no one touches my systems. What does a client know and fear if he's willing to shut down his own operations? My phone started ringing before noon first once, then twice, then in a frantic rhythm that made my nerves jump. Unknown numbers, company switchboard, the outsourced firm, even Clive's extension flashing again and again. I silenced each call and set the phone face down. Then it rang one more time. A pause, a breath, and a voice I knew instantly. Aretha, it's Jonathan Hale. I stood so fast my chair scraped the floor. Jonathan, why are you calling me? I walked into the office this morning, he said, controlled but tight. And I did not find you. I found strangers touching systems you built. I was told you moved on. Is that true? I closed my eyes. No, I didn't move on. Then what happened? The words rose faster than I could contain them, 2 weeks of humiliation and anger breaking through. Clive cut our commission to 1%. I refused. He said my refusal meant the whole team refused. The next morning, our badges were dead, our desks boxed, and a dozen contractors were in our seats. Jonathan stayed silent long enough that I thought the line had dropped. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower, sharper. He lied to me. He told me you were supervising remotely. I had no idea he said that. I whispered, I didn't want to risk contacting you directly. He would claim breach of contract or non-disclosure. He exhaled slowly. Aretha, I am not angry with you. I am angry that your integrity was used as a shield for incompetence. Another pause. And I am angrier that my data was placed at risk to justify a cheaper invoice. I felt my heartbeat in my throat. Jonathan, I don't know what you expect me to do now. What I expect, he said, is transparency. He continued, voice steady. My contract with your company is worth more than $2 million annually. I can terminate it today if my lead is removed without consultation. My hands tightened around the phone. I intend to use that leverage, he said. And before I make that call, I need to know one thing. If I demand your return on your terms, will you come back? When power comes knocking, will you finally stand up for your worth? Jonathan met me at the front doors of headquarters, his expression a sharp contrast to the usual calm confidence he projected. Stay close, he said as we walked inside together. I want no confusion about who you're here with. Employees in the lobby turned openly to stare. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. A few of my former teammates stepped back as if they weren't sure they were really seeing me. When the elevator doors opened on the 12th floor, Clive was standing there waiting. His face went gray the moment Jonathan stepped out beside me. Jonathan, Clive said tightly, we could have arranged a meeting. We are having one now. Jonathan cut in. He walked straight past Clive and into the main boardroom. I followed, feeling the weight of every eye on my back. Jonathan told an assistant to bring in the CEO immediately. Marion Keeler arrived within minutes, hair pulled into a tight knot, her face composed but tense. What is the emergency? Jonathan didn't waste time. Unauthorized access to my environment, contractors without background clearance, false information regarding Aretha's status, and a complete replacement of her team without my knowledge. Marion turned to Clive. Explain. Clive straightened his tie. A necessary operational shift. We needed cost optimization. Aretha chose not to align, so the transition proceeded. That is not what happened, I interjected. Replacing my entire team wasn't optimization. It was retaliation for refusing a 1% commission. A low murmur spread across the room. Jonathan added, You do not retaliate against someone handling my data. You consult with me. Marion's expression hardened. Clive, I never approved any staffing changes on VIP-sensitive accounts. Let me see the memo you filed. Clive hesitated. Marion held out her hand. The document he finally produced was so thinly altered, it insulted everyone in the room. Jonathan leaned over to glance at it. You forged clearance, he said quietly. Unbelievable. Clive opened his mouth, but Marion lifted a hand, cutting him off. You will step out of the room. Now. Security approached from the hall. Jonathan looked at me. This is only the beginning. When the truth finally erupts, who will stand with you and who will run? The boardroom felt quieter without Clive in it, but the tension hadn't lifted. Marian folded her hands on the table, eyes moving between Jonathan and me as if waiting for the next blow to land. Jonathan spoke first. My position is simple. I stay only if Aretha leads my account again. No substitutes, no intermediaries, no cost-cutting experiments. Marian nodded immediately. Understood. We cannot afford to lose you. Jonathan leaned back. Then fix what your manager broke. Marian swallowed once before turning toward me. Aretha, if you are willing, we will reinstate you immediately. I kept my hands still on the table. Reinstatement is only the start. My voice didn't waver. I want my compensation corrected to reflect 10 years of work. I want the authority to rebuild my team with people I trust. And I want explicit protection from any form of retaliation going forward. Marian listened without interrupting. For the first time since I'd met her, she looked like someone who understood the cost of ignorance. You will have all of that, she said. In writing, Jonathan added, and I want her reporting line clarified. No more hidden memos. No more forged approvals. Her decisions for my account stand unless I override them. Marian nodded again. Agreed. An assistant slipped into the room and handed Marian a tablet. She scanned it, then looked at me. Your reinstatement is processed. The updated compensation package is included. You have full discretion to rehire your team. Then she tapped the screen once more. And Clive's badge has been disabled. Jonathan raised an eyebrow. Effective now. Security is escorting him from the building, Marian said. We'll proceed with a full investigation. Your team is welcome to submit statements. I exhaled slowly, the kind of breath that feels like it's been waiting years to be released. The power I had been denied, dismissed, minimized, ignored was suddenly in my hands. If you suddenly held the power you were once denied, what would you do with it 2 days later? Marian called me back into the executive conference room, not for another negotiation, but for a decision. We want you in a position where this never happens to you again, she said. Name the role you actually want. Jonathan was there too, arms crossed, expression unreadable but supportive. I answered plainly. I want autonomy. I want to operate as a hybrid part client strategist, part consultant. I want direct authority over my accounts, and I do not want to report through any chain Clive once touched. Marian nodded slowly, then pushed a new contract across the table. Done. It felt strange to see my name at the top of a document that didn't diminish me, but I signed it. My next step was calling my former team, one by one. They walked back into the building, hesitant at first, then relieved. Denise hugged me so tightly I lost my breath for a moment. You brought us home, she said. I told her the truth. We built this together. We rebuild it together. The outsourced group packed quietly that afternoon. Jonathan insisted they be treated respectfully, and they were escorted out with professional courtesy, just not anywhere near sensitive systems again. As for Clive, his fall wasn't theatrical. It was clinical. Jonathan filed a formal complaint regarding falsified documentation, and the Securities and Exchange Commission opened an inquiry. When I passed the glass hallway later that day, 2 compliance officers were escorting him toward the exit. He didn't look at me. He looked at the floor. That evening, I walked to Pier 62 and stood near the railing overlooking Elliott Bay. The air was sharp, the kind that wakes every nerve. I felt something settle in me, not triumph, not revenge, something steadier. I hadn't just reclaimed my job. I had reclaimed the part of myself I feared I had lost. Sometimes 1% is not about money, it is about how much of yourself you refuse to give up. What if the smallest number in the room is the one that reveals your true value?